He was a millionaire used to dining alone, drowning in silence and red wine. She was a young, exhausted mother clutching her baby, asking only for leftovers. He was ready to wave her away with some cash until he looked into her eyes. In that moment, everything changed. Her quiet strength, her dignity despite hardship, and her boundless love for her child pierced through the walls around his heart. What began as a chance encounter turned into a life neither of them ever expected, proof that sometimes the most unexpected people are the ones who save us. In the heart of Moscow, under the soft golden glow of streetlights and the hum of evening cafes, sat a man who had everything, and yet felt empty. Mikhail Sergeyevich Volkov was a millionaire with a life many could only dream of. Designer suits, luxury cars, a sprawling mansion, and silence. Ever since his divorce and his children moving away, his evenings were consumed by solitude. That night, like so many before, he dined alone, until a quiet voice broke through the stillness. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" He looked up to find a young woman, no older than 25, holding a sleeping infant. Her clothes were worn, but her eyes held something rare, pride without arrogance, sorrow without bitterness, and a fierce maternal love that refused to be broken. What happened next was no grand gesture or fairy tale romance. It was something deeper. He didn't just give her food, he offered her a job, a home, and something even more precious, dignity. Over time, this chance encounter blossomed into a new chapter of hope, healing, and family. This is not a story about wealth. It's a story about the wealth of the heart. About how sometimes, the person asking for help ends up being the one who brings life back into yours. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" she asked. But when the millionaire looked into her eyes, a miracle happened. Evening hours in the center of Moscow always felt special. Streetlights began to softly illuminate the sidewalks, and cafes filled with warm light and quiet conversations. At just such an hour, Mikhail Sergeyevich Volkov sat at his favorite table outside the restaurant Old Moscow. Mikhail Sergeyevich was a successful man. At 58, he had built an empire, a chain of stores that brought in millions. His suits were custom-made, his watch cost as much as a good apartment, and his car was the latest German model. But tonight, as he had for the past 6 months, he sat alone. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. His children were grown and lived in other cities. The big house in the Moscow suburbs felt like a museum, beautiful, but empty. So Mikhail preferred to dine here, among people, even if he didn't speak to anyone. He ate his steak slowly, sipping red wine now and then, watching the passers-by. Life went on, young couples rushed to dates, families with children returned home, elderly people strolled, discussing the day's events. "Excuse me," a quiet voice said beside his table. Mikhail looked up and saw a young woman, no more than 25. Her light hair was tied in a simple bun. Her dress, though clean, had clearly seen better days. In her arms, a baby was asleep, wrapped in a warm blanket. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" she asked. Her voice held no arrogance, no self-pity, only tiredness and a simple request for help. Mikhail reached into his pocket to give her some money, as he usually did. But when he looked into her eyes, something stopped him. There was sadness in them, but no despair. Pride, but no arrogance. And there was love, infinite, maternal love for the child in her arms. "Please, sit down," he said suddenly, surprising even himself, nodding toward the chair across from him. "Let me order you something proper." The woman hesitated. "I can't. I didn't mean to. My name is Mikhail Sergeyevich." "And yours?" "Elena," she replied softly. "This is Alyosha." She gently stroked the sleeping baby. "Elena, a beautiful name. Please, sit. I've been dining alone for months now. A little company wouldn't hurt." Elena carefully sat on the edge of the chair, still unsure if this was really happening. Mikhail called the waiter and ordered soup, a main dish, and tea with pastries. "I worked in a bookstore," Elena began quietly when the food arrived. "The pay was small, but I loved it. I've always loved books. When Alyosha was born, I took maternity leave. A month later, the store closed. It couldn't compete with the big chains. She spoke slowly, cautiously, as if afraid to burden her listener. Mikhail listened. And with each word, something shifted in his chest. "The child's father?" he asked gently. "He left when he found out I was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility." She shrugged, without bitterness, just stating a fact. "My parents died in a car crash 3 years ago. It's just me and Alyosha." "And where do you live?" "I rent a room in a communal apartment on the outskirts. The landlady's kind hasn't kicked me out yet, even though I'm 2 months behind on rent. I'm looking for work, but it's hard with a baby. The daycare only takes children from 18 months. Mikhail sat in silence. He thought about his own problems. His empty house. His loneliness. And about how all his money couldn't buy the warmth of genuine human connection. And here, beside him, sat a girl who had nothing except boundless love for her son. Yet in her eyes, there was no hatred toward the world. "Elena," he said finally, "I have a proposition." She looked up, wary. "I need help. Someone to take care of the house. Cook. Keep things in order. The pay is good. And you'll have a place to live. My home is big. There's a separate room for you and the baby." "I can't accept such help from a stranger," Elena said. "You don't even know me." "I don't even know myself anymore," Mikhail smiled. 6 months ago, I would have walked past you, given you money and forgotten you a minute later. But something's changed. Maybe it's age. Maybe loneliness has taught me to value warmth." He paused, looking at the lights of evening Moscow. "You know, Elena, money is a strange thing. I spent half my life earning it, thinking it was the most important thing. But now I understand, what matters is having someone to say good morning to. Someone to say good night to. What matters is hearing footsteps in the house. A voice. Life." Alyosha woke up and started to cry softly. Elena gently rocked him, humming a lullaby. Mikhail watched them and felt something warm stir in his chest, a feeling he had almost forgotten. "All right," Elena said, "but on one condition. If it doesn't work out, if we don't get along, I'll leave. No hard feelings." "Agreed," Mikhail nodded. 3 months passed. Mikhail Sergeyevich's house was unrecognizable. He was no longer awakened by an alarm clock, but by a child's laughter from the next room. Over breakfast, they discussed plans for the day. Elena turned out to be not only a wonderful housekeeper, but also a fascinating conversationalist. She read a lot, loved art, and could speak on any topic. Little Alyosha became the light of the home. Mikhail, who had no grandchildren of his own yet, discovered in himself a deep, unconditional love for this tiny person. He bought toys, read bedtime stories, taught the boy his first words. In the evenings, after Alyosha had gone to sleep, Mikhail and Elena would sit in the living room and talk about life. Elena shared her dream to open a small children's library. A place where kids could listen to fairy tales and play with books. Mikhail listened and, for the first time in years, found himself thinking not just about profit, but about how to make the world a little better. "Mikhail Sergeyevich," Elena said one evening, "thank you. Not just for the job and the home, but for showing me that kind people still exist." "It's you who showed me what real strength looks like," he replied. "The strength of a mother who never gives up. The strength of a person who stays kind, no matter what life throws at them." They sat quietly, listening to the soft breathing of the sleeping child. "You know," Mikhail said, "I used to think I was helping people by giving them jobs. But now I see, true help is when you simply stay near someone. Share their joy. And their sorrow." A year later, a cozy children's library opened in the center of Moscow. It was called Alyosha's Tales. Mikhail Sergeyevich provided the funds. Elena gave it her heart, soul, and knowledge. Every day, mothers with toddlers came in. Older kids stopped by after school. the rooms were filled with stories, laughter, and conversation. And back home, a growing Alyosha waited. He already said Uncle Misha and reached for him with tiny hands when Mikhail came home from work. Sometimes, walking past that same restaurant where they'd first met, Mikhail would remember that night. How she asked for leftovers. How he was ready to hand her money and walk away. And how one look, one honest, tired glance, changed everything. Maybe miracles don't come when we expect them. Maybe they come when we open our hearts to simple human kindness. When we realize that true wealth isn't in our bank accounts, but in the warmth of a home where someone's waiting for you. And sometimes, to find happiness, you just have to not walk past it. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and comment below, because the world needs more reminders that kindness changes lives. Who knows? Your small act of sharing might inspire someone's big act of love. Yellow heart.